Hello and welcome to this screencast on how to utilize Google Forms within your Google account. So if you do not have a Google account, you'll need to go to google.com, sign up for a free account, and then you can come back and check this video out. So what we're going to do today is we're going to generate a new Google form and be able to submit a link to someone on the web, and they can fill out that form and you're going to be able to collect all those responses back. Very handy for a variety of situations, as in business, education, and personal. So let's jump in and start with building a Google form. The first thing you're going to click is the New button to look at the various things that you can generate, and we want to go to More in Google Forms. So once you click on Google Forms, it's going to get you into the canvas for building your first form or your form in general. There's a few things that you'll want to do. Take note that there's the title of whatever your document is or your form. You'll have some navigational information up at the top here to get to your theming, to looking at your preview, also being able to send out the form to a variety of your contacts. The big part of this form is this canvas here. This is where you're going to be able to enter in the various fields and generate the form from kind of a back-end perspective. This isn't what the form's going to look like once you actually look at the preview. We'll get there in a moment. So let's take a scenario and build it out so you can really understand how this is going to work. The idea is, let's say we're having a conference, a tech conference, and we want to get some information from some of our attendee. What name do you want on your badge? What kind of food do you want to eat? And do you have any additional comments that we want to contact you back with? I'm just going to put a quick disclaimer in here. With Google Forms, you don't want to collect any payment information. All right, it's not really the best or secure way to do that. I guess it is under an HTTPS, but I just wouldn't do it. There's a lot better ways to do some payment processing. That aside, when you really look at what you can do with Google Forms, it is immense. There's so many opportunities to be able to build out a form, collect information. There's surveys out there, ability to kind of track certain things that you're doing within a group, be able to go ahead and get information. Maybe you're having even a work party and you wanted to figure out what everyone should be bringing. Go send that form out, everyone fills it out, and you get all the responses into a spreadsheet. So get those gears turning. Think about what you can do in a particular Google form as I build out this one. All right, let's go ahead and jump in. First thing I do is I give my form a name. So I'm going to say this is my tech conference form. And the next bit that we want to take a look at is the ability to put in a description, pretty general kind of thing. So this is a conference form to collect information on badges and food you would like to eat. I don't know, something like that. You get the idea. We can change this up later. Okay, once you get your information done, if I go ahead and click on this, it automatically takes whatever title I put on here and it puts it on to the form. Quick and easy thing. You notice everything's already saved to the drive. I really don't have to hit save that often. Okay, let's build the form. What's the first thing that you might want to collect in the form? Name information. So the way that you can do that is go to your first question that's already there for you. They know that you're going to be building a form, so they're going to provide the first one. So there's a few things that happen when you click on that title area. First, you're going to see some things light up, some options pop around. One of the first things that you might notice that change is it gives you now an option as to what you kind of question you want to select. So what I'll do is I'm going to click on this and you can see the various options in here. Like if you wanted to put a date or a time, they have some nice scaling things like a linear scale being like a Likert scale, so you can have a strongly disagree to strongly agree, and you have all the different little iterations in between. Some grid choices that are helpful. You have drop downs, check boxes, multiple choice, paragraph and short answer. Really most anything that you need in a form like this that you like to collect. So let's go ahead and start with a short answer, because the short answer I want to collect is their first name. So you just go in here, put in first name. That is it. You got a first name, got a short answer text that we can collect. Now, since we're going to have these people fill out this form, let's make sure that we require that field. So I click on required. Now, anybody that submits this form has to mandatorily fill out the first name in the form. All right, that's great. let's go ahead and put in last name. So since we know that it's going to look very similar to what first name is, I'm going to use this button. Really handy. It's going to duplicate what I had in this one right before it. So I hit duplicate, and I'm going to go in there and I can change it to last name pretty quickly. I got another bit on my form. All right, so another one would be name on badge. That would be what they'd want to put on their badge. So I'm going to go ahead and click it a third time, and now I got that duplicate of last name, and I'll say name on badge. And so maybe we want to give a little bit more context as to what this name on badge would be. So what I could do is I can go over here to this little ellipse, and I can click on it, and there is the ability to add a description. So once I click on description, it gives me a little bit more information. This will be name on your badge at the conference. Use a nickname if desired. So you can give a little bit more context as to what you might want them to fill out in that field by using that extra description field. So we got 3 fields: first name, last name, name on badge. Really easy, short bits of text. Let's use a few other ways to put in fields in there. One of the other ones that you can add is your question, a different question, by clicking the plus. You don't have to duplicate at this point. You click plus, it's going to throw a question in there. First one that it defaults to is always multiple choice. But once you click this, you have a lot of different answers. So we talked about food choices. We want to have some food that you can potentially eat at this event. So I'm going to say, let's do a multiple choice. We'll keep it there. What is your food preference? Is all that right? I'm a terrible speller and a terrible typist. So there we go. Let's say burgers. I'll add another option. I'll say chicken fingers. That sounds really delicious. I might have that for dinner. Well, let's put in some vegetarian kind of stuff. Maybe a salad. And how about a gluten-free meal? I don't know. And let's say we had another. We're going to give them an option. So if you click this add other, it gives you another area. So as you fill out the form, that you can just type in something. Because they are multiple choice, it has to be one of these various options. Okay, we got that. That one's good. Let's make that one required. Let's see, what else could we collect as far as information? Let's say at this point we need to also know their email address, because we need to know if they're asking for a gluten-free meal, or if they're having something other and we need to contact them back and get a little discussion going. We want to have some way to contact them. So I'm going to add another question. All right, so I'm going to put in email. We want to collect that email address. I'll then go to your short answer, and it's looking pretty good. We can require that. But one thing that comes up is, how can we know that there's going to be putting in a valid email address? Well, there's a way that we can use a little bit of validation within this form to help that out. The way that you do that is you go again to this little ellipse, and when you click on it, instead of a description this time, we're going to go with data validation. So by clicking on data validation, it's going to give us some extra options. I'm not going to go in detail to all the various options, because we can just do a whole screencast on this particular thing altogether. But if you take a peek at it, you can say if it's a number, and then you have some different data that you can put in there. If it's equal to or it's a greater than, put some logic in there. You have text, which we're going to use in just a moment. And then there's also something called regular expression. So a regular expression will allow you to format a particular field in a specific way. There's a little bit of a syntax you'd learn to be able to create that regular expression. If you don't know what that is, go look it up on Google, figure out a little bit more, and you can use those regular expressions. Today we're going to focus in on text. So if I click on text, Google has already built into this form the ability that it should be an email address. How handy is that? So I'll go ahead and say the text should be an email address. And if I like, I can say, let's put in a custom error text. So they start typing in an email. It's not what we're asking for. It'll give us this custom error. We can say, please provide a valid email so we can contact you. All right, so we got our own custom text in there. Now, one thing that I realized as I was building this form is I needed this email at kind of at the last step, but it really would probably make sense right after the last name or right after name on badge. So how do I get it there? Well, what's really nice is you can go ahead and you can click on this little guy here and see how you can kind of drag it around. Well, I can just drag it up to the top of the screen and it's going to start inching its way up, and wherever it's going to drop, you can just let go. And now you've reordered that on your list here. So we got first name, last name, name on badge, email, food preference, and the last thing is let's get some comments. Maybe they want to let us know something about themselves or have an idea as to something that can make this conference a little bit better. So again, I will click add question, and since I was actually on another question above, it tried to add it below, but we know our little tactic to move things around. So I'll say comments, and I will also add paragraph. Move this guy down. Got everything in order. This is looking like a really great form. So there's a few things I just wanted to point out. We're going to complete the form at this stage, but there's some nice tools that you can use as you go along. So if you click on this title section, you can add different subsections and titles to your form. Very handy if you're going to split your form out into different sections. So just think about this as like kind of a heading. I'm going to go ahead and delete because I don't want that guy. You can add images into your form. So what it's going to do, it's going to open up this screen. You can drag an image in there. You can actually just search your computer for an image if you want to click the button. It's really nice if you wanted to put a logo or something that's going to really show who you are as a company, as a business, as a school. There's a few other options. You can add videos, which is very handy. Since this is a Google product, it's going to plug right into YouTube, and you can drop in your YouTube videos right into your form, give a little bit of extra explanation. And then you can also add sections. So if you need to break your form up into a few different pages, you can use this section, and as it's broken into sections, each section would be on a new page. Very great for longer forms or forms that need a little bit more logic based off of answers that you have on prior pages. Since this is just the kind of quick once over tech tip on Google Forms, we're not going to go to that level, but potentially if you let us know in those comments, we will do a more in-depth video on Google Forms. Okay, so now that we have everything set up, let's take a peek at what our form would look like. Going up to the top here, if you click on the preview, you're going to a new tab, and that's what your form's going to look like. It looks similar to where you were at, but none of the editing options are there. So you're able to literally go through, start filling out the form. If I went ahead and hit submit, it's going to say, hey, these are the ones that are required. Right now, like you look at this email, it says this is a required question. Let's just slap the keyboard. Right when I did that, I didn't put in a valid email address, but there's our custom text that pops in there. So you can see how handy this can truly be by creating this, not even able to submit this form until they filled out the proper areas that we are wanting to have required. Before I fill this out, let's go jump back into the form and look at a few things that we can do. So before I want this to go live, there are a few things that I might want to do for the theming. I don't like the purple. It's not really working with what I want. So if you click on color palette, you have a ability to pick a different color. So let's just say we're going to throw on like a blue. That's a really nice blue. I'll throw that on there. Or maybe you wanted an image from their gallery. So they have this little gallery that you can pull up and you can pull in some information. You can also do custom images by using upload photos of your albums. If we went ahead and took a look at what they had available here, there is a bunch of different pictures in here. Let's just use this brick road, hit select just so you can see what it looks like. It's going to drop it in at the top of your form. If you previewed the form, this is a great example of what it would look like. So really good, quick theming options that you can get. And then look at that. I mean, you have a professional form in less than 10 minutes here on this video. Okay, so we got that set up. Let's take a look at what settings we have. So I click on that settings gear, and there's a few options. If you want to send it to just Gmail users, you can actually have it so they can only fill out the form one time. Very helpful if you're trying to get responses and you only want one response from someone. I'm going to leave that unchecked for now. There are a bunch of other things that you can fill out in these details, like when they confirm that it's been turned in, do you want to say, hey, thank you, this response has been recorded. Right now the default is your response has been recorded. So I might say, thanks, your name badge will be completed as requested. There we go. We got a very good description as to what's going on. So as you go down this list, you can see things like you can submit another response. So this would be a link that allows you to go right back to the form after you submitted one response, and you can submit another one. You can also have somebody edit their response. That's helpful if as they hit submit, they might see something on their form and like, oh, let me go back to the response and I can edit that and then resubmit it, and those values will be updated in your repository of your responses. So for today, I'll go ahead and leave those two on so you can see what's going on. You can also see a summary of responses. What that would do is it would show you how other people have responded to this particular area. So in this particular instance, you don't want to necessarily show the summary on certain forms, and I don't think this is one that we'd want to do that, so I'm going to leave it unchecked. If you had multiple sections in your forms, you can do the show progress. You can also shuffle the question order. Sometimes people make quizzes out of these forms. It's a great way in education to quickly send out a link, have people fill it out, and get their responses back. I'm going to leave those alone. All right, so we got some of those notification settings set up as to what's going to happen when you submit this form. I think we're nearly ready. Now, one other area that you may want to take a peek at is your responses. So if you click on responses, right now I have 0 responses. It has this little icon. If you're familiar with this icon is, it's going to Google Sheets. So by clicking on this icon, we can set this up to start dropping in values into Google Sheets. We'll do that in a moment. You also have the ability to toggle on and off the ability to accept responses. So by just clicking this, you are not going to accept a response by turning it off. So as people go to this link, even if they have it, it says, hey, sorry, we can't get this response. You can go ahead and change this if you'd like. Very handy there. And then at this ellipse, there are a few other things that you can do with the form. Do you want to be notified via email when somebody submits the form? Could be handy. You can turn that on by clicking on this guy. Selecting that response destination can be similar to that little icon we saw in a second. We'll use the icon to do that. Once you set up that destination, you may, for some reason, want to unlink it at some point. You can do that here. You can just go here and download a CSV file and never even have to worry about putting it into some sort of response destination. And of course, there's some printing in there. And then maybe you use the form over and over every so often, and you can clear out the old responses by hitting delete responses. So that is the response note area. But let's go ahead and click on this guy so we can create a spreadsheet that's going to collect those responses. Now, if you have a spreadsheet in your Google Docs, you can go ahead and select an existing one and drop it in that sheet. I don't have one, so I'm just going to use the defaults. I really like how the defaults work. It puts whatever the name of your form is, and then it puts that in the end, responses in parentheses. Really makes it work for me. So I'll hit create, and what's going to go on now, it's going to create this, this response area. And if I go back into my drive, it'll take a second here to kind of pop up. Let's see here, there it goes. The tech responses has popped up. Let me go back in the drive. There it is. So you have your form that you created, that's your canvas, and then here's the responses where they're going to collect. If you look in here, it has a timestamp and then those various fields that we had dropped into the form. All right, let's go back into our form itself. This is just the canvas, remember. So let's go look at the live form. So by clicking on this eyeball, you're going to get into the form itself. Right off the bat, what you can do is this is your URL. This is what you're going to want to copy and send out to people. As a quick tip, since we're talking about forms, that is our gargantuanly long URL. So one little trick is I'll just copy that guy, and usually I'll go to goo.gl. It's their link shortener, Google, since we're kind of sticking in Google, and you're able to just drop that link in that shortener, and you can shorten that URL, and look at that, you got a really quick short URL that you can send out instead of this big long deal. See, a little tip in there. But for the most part, what we want people to do, go fill out this form. So let me go ahead and fill this form out. So Adam, you're great, because I am really an awesome person. Actually, I'm not. I'm pretty terrible, but I'll just say I am for this one. On my badge, what do I want to say? Adam rocks. Woot. And email address. So I'll do adam@CSU-Pueblo.edu. Preference, I like burgers. I gotta go for it. So finally, I hope the burgers come with fries. All right, so we got everything set up, we'll submit my form. And let's take a look at what we have. So there's that response that we had set up for before. Thanks, your name badge will be completed as requested. And then you have your ability to edit the response and submit another response. You know what? I'm going to edit my response. I am not that great. So maybe I'm Adam the average. There we go. That seems a little bit better. I don't want to be so ostentatious by saying I'm great. Now we submit the form. That is great, and we are off and running. So let's say you're filling out this form a few times. You can hit submit another response. You get to the blank version of the form, and then you can continually collect information from that form link. So to kind of round out what's going on is if you go back to this, here is the information in the form. You'll notice that I had changed my form from the great to the average. So this shows that there was some sort of change on the form itself. It just gives you this little indicator that had happened, just in case you wanted to know. But right off the bat, you can probably tell this is going to be super handy as people start submitting this. You have this awesome spreadsheet that you can use. Go watch another video on our spreadsheets. For now, I'm just going to say this is where it's going to collect. You can do a lot to save that. But since we're talking specifically about the forms, I did want to talk to you about how the responses do get collected. You'll notice that there's this response area at the top. It shows that I have one response, gives you a great visual indicator of that. And once I click on responses, it's going to give you some different information. First of all, it gives you like a summary of information. Not very handy when I'm collecting kind of information here. You may be able to see some neat things in the food preference, see who's picking what. So certain areas will have some charts that will pop out. You can go from an individual perspective. This is handy if you just want to kind of look through the various values that are dropping in here, and you can scroll through them. It will paginate, and you can just click through that, print ones. Pretty handy. But really, I like to always go to that sheet and then check it out from there. It just seems like it makes the most sense for me to go there. So that concludes most of this screencast on what you can do with Google Forms. I did say that I would show you what the old school version of Google Forms looks like. Most of the same thing that we worked on here is in the old school side. Go to this little guy at the lower left, click on that, and then it's going to convert this back into an older form. You'll see that all your information is going to be in there. I like it because I can just kind of holistically look at my form. There's not all these little animations going off on it. It feels much more like a layout that you're looking through. And I don't know, just my personal preference. But what you'll notice is all the same things are in this form that you had before. The only caveat, or the only thing that you don't have in the newer version, is your ability to add add-ons and do a little bit with your script editor. So that is a little limiting if you're really advanced with this, but for a majority of people that use forms, you're going to be able to go in either or on the environments as to what you use. So whichever preference you like, go with it, because you're the one that's working with this layout. But you should know a little bit more now about Google Forms and how powerful they truly can be. If you have any questions, any comments, any thoughts, leave them in the comments. We'll get back with you. Be sure to subscribe. Until next time, I'm signing off. Have a good one.